You're listening to Epic Footnote Productions. Go to Linktree/Epic Footnote for links to all of our streaming platforms, YouTube channel, social media pages, and merch site. That's linktr.ee/Epic Footnote.
Hey everyone, what's going on? It's 2 minutes to review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. We haven't really done a classic review in a while, and while this is a classic album, it's a revisit to one of Incubus's finest albums, maybe. Well, you know it already. It's Morning View. It's one of their highly regarded albums. Whatever you think of it is what you think of it. But for 2024, they're doing a 23-year revisit of the album, and they're making it sound fresh, dare I say.
To quote the band even, they are literally calling this a re-recording / rethinking of Morning View. And again, I'm going to quote Brandon Boyd himself directly, and I want everyone to remember this quote because I think it's going to, we're going to dive into this a little bit more in our reviews. But essentially, this is the result of our desire to honor this burgeoning legacy, but also reimagine it as musicians who have been lovingly performing these songs night after night for the last 23 years. And a little fun background, this was actually announced almost a year ago, and they started to perform the album in its entirety. They did a show at the Hollywood Bowl. They're doing a whole tour this summer. And for whatever reason, it got delayed. But yeah, to Matt's point, this is really the album where we actually revisited A Crow Left the Murder 5 years ago to celebrate that album's anniversary. And that's where they really kind of took on this new alt-rock persona. But this album, Morning View, is really a crossroads for the band in that you saw them slowly shed off their new metal origins and really start to evolve into the mature alt-rock band that we know them to be today. Yeah, it's kind of weird that we're revisiting this now. I don't know about you, but I'm a sucker for like 25 years, 30 years, and like 23. That's random. That's like what is this, a BuzzFeed list where they just choose a random number to do a list on?
I mean, it's a way to stand out.
I guess so. And well, we'll talk a little bit more about what we actually think of this quote unquote re-recording, rethinking of the album. But two things to actually call it that do make this album different is that it actually features their new bassist, Nicole Rowe, who joined the band this year officially. And it also features Lizzo playing flute on the song Aqueous Transmission, which unfortunately is not as cool now as it probably was when they first asked Lizzo to do this over a year ago. If you followed any of the scandals that have been following Lizzo, it breaks my heart because I actually loved her last album. I even named it one of my favorite albums in 2002. Unfortunately, it's not as cool of a flex as I'm sure Incubus was hoping it would be this year. But here we are with the reimagining of Morning View. Morning View 23, if we want to call it. With that, Matt, I'm going to give you the option. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
You know what? I'm going to go first.
Look at you standing up.
Breaking tradition.
Look at this. It's a crazy world we live in now. You let me know when you're ready.
All right. Let's go.
Look at you stretching. 3, 2, 1, go.
I really enjoy when a band takes an album and revisits it now that they're a more mature, band in the scene. They've been around for a while. They've got some credibility to their name, and they can do a project like this. And it's funny that this album has been revisited the way that it has been, because I also compare this to another album by a band called Thrice and the artist In the Ambulance. Now, that was really one of the first times that a revisit album really kind of took me by surprise on how good you can take songs that have been recorded a while ago and turn them into something that sounds new and fresh. And Incubus has done really that for me with this album. I didn't know what they can do and how they can make it seem, like I said, fresh, more alive. And that's really one of the key words here, is this album sounds way more alive than it did on the original recording. A lot of songs kind of just jump off the page, like Are You In? Have You Ever? Echo, Circles. They sound way more alive. And this, I believe, is just because, like I said, they're veterans in the industry now, and they've got the credit to say, no, this doesn't really sound, the way that we want it. We're gonna bring the production in here, and we're going to make it sound larger than life. And Nicole Rowe on backing vocals really does add a little bit of something here and there to the album to back up Brandon's vocals. It's a really great look for the album. And dare I say, one of my favorite one of my favorite songs on the album was Aqueous Transmission. And they did a killer job on the reimagining of this. And this album, for me, is really how A, you want to do a revisit, and B, this is the definitive way to listen to Morning View in 2024.
The time is locked in. Out of 5 stars, what will you give Morning View 23?
4.5.
Wow.
Yeah. This was the definitive Incubus album for me growing up, and I really latched on to this album. There's a lot here for me, not just from a personal perspective, but just the flavor of the songs that they do on here. It's not just, their new metal roots, and it's not trying to be too alt rock like A Crow Left to the Murder, or even some of their later works. This is really where you see that nice blend of everything going on. And there's just so much to love about the original album, and this just brings it to life. The production and everything here just really spices it up. And Aqueous Transmission is really that. It's just the piece of the album to me that is like Incubus making a statement that they're not just this new metal alt rock band. They really are artists that are painting a picture. They learned, the Japanese instruments to bring this song to life. And even like something as stupid as the frogs in the background, and just knowing that they took a microphone out in the back of the studio on the original recording and pointed it at some frogs and then put it on the album was great. So, I mean, I just loved everything about this album. And like I said, it was great back then, and it's even better now.
Okay. I will give you some follow-up questions to that and add my 2 cents after I give my review. So
ready?
Count me down. Yep.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Let's be honest. This quote-unquote reimagining is really not a reimagining. It's nearly 100% note-for-note re-recording of the original. Yes, there's, a few little minor differences sprinkled in, and, definitely a crisper production, which I agree with Matt. The production is phenomenal. But, truth be told, unless if I was really, really listening closely, if you had told me I was listening to the original album while listening to Morning View 23, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. So here's the positive to that. It does prove that the band is still incredible sounding, and that their musicianship is stronger than ever. I mean, just the fact that they can perform these songs almost the exact way, maybe even a little bit better than they did 20 years ago, is in and of itself very, very impressive. So musicianship wise, boom, they are in top game. But here's the negative, in my opinion. Yes, their musicianship is top level. Unfortunately, this re-recording proves that their creativity is not. To me, I think it's a shame that the band didn't try to take a few chances and put a new spin on these songs. And I feel like they could have created something special and different that could actually coexist with the original without blatantly trying to replace it. Sadly, I mean, I want to enjoy it and enjoy it for what it is, but it's just hard to fully enjoy this re-recording when within the first 2 tracks of listening to it, it's very clear what the true motives behind re-recording Morning View are.
All right. Got a time and star rating out of 5.
This, I don't know if I could even give this a ranking, frankly, because this is the same album as 2001. I mean, again, it's a great album, but I mean, if we're just judging it solely on the musicianship and production, yeah, definitely 3.5, maybe even 4. But if I'm gonna judge it on the songs, I mean, and creativity wise, uh, no, I can't even. I almost feel like it should be disqualified for a ranking. Like, I know you kept saying that this is how you should reimagine an album. To me, no. If this is how you're going to reimagine an album, don't. Why bother? Why just let the classic original album just live as is? Unless if you're going to do something just creative, like why spend and waste the money producing something and promoting something that is just known for what it is, what already exists? And unfortunately, I mean, the band pretty much kind of, without saying it, they tiptoed around it when Brandon Boyd was interviewed by Rolling Stone about this, and even in the statement that they released to announce this, they kind of tiptoed how, like, okay, yes, we did just earn back the recordings of this album, and yeah, if Taylor Swift doing it, like now we are within a time frame that we will own the masters. If we re-record the album, we can legally do that. But that's not interesting to us. That's not why we're really doing it. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it is. Like, it just, to me, like the second I heard Nice to Know You, I'm just like, this is like the same song, same recording. And it's clear that you're just trying to get back the masters. You're trying to pull a Taylor Swift. And you know what? I don't blame them. I don't blame bands for doing it. I just kind of wish they took the Taylor approach and flat out said, no, I'm doing this to get back my freaking masters, to get back control of my music and art, as opposed to tiptoeing was like, we've just evolved as artists and musicians, and we want to really bring that to this recordings. To me, it just to me they tiptoed around the fact like, yeah, we don't own the masters to the original album. Now we're going to do it, and we're going to. You know what? It gives us something to sell while we are on tour as well. This band, I still feel like has a lot of creativity in them, or maybe they don't, because here we are with a note for note re-recording of Morning View.
See, I don't view it as a bad thing. I don't know what it was like for them the first time around when they recorded the album, if that was really truly their vision, right? Like, they put a lot of work into it, but and I can hear this plain as day, if you put these two albums back to back, Nice to Know You and Wish You Were Here and like Are You In, they jump off the new album and they just fall extremely flat listening to them back to back. Now,
well, hold on. I'm going to stop you right there for a second. You say that you don't know, that wasn't their vision. Well, two things. A, they actually have gone on record and said, like, no, it was actually considering how we had to follow up the massive success of songs like Drive and just the album Make Yourself. It was actually a pretty chill experience for them. And it was their vision. Also, I would dare say, no, that was their vision, because we're hearing that vision again in 2024 in this recording. To me, the only difference is that this production is a little bit louder. I don't hear the jump of energy from these recordings.
There's a lot more to it. In every way, shape, and form. Like, I can hear the excitement and Brandon's vocals. Like, adding Nicole on certain songs actually really brings out the background in it a little bit more. Like, there's more depth to this. There's way more here, and I really enjoyed it. Because
I'm not saying this is like an unenjoyable thing, but I just don't hear it. I don't hear it.
So this is another thing too, right? Like, when I compare this album to Thrice's Artist in the Ambulance Revisit, that album was recorded pretty much in the same style that this was recorded in, right? Like a very flat style recording. Everything's level. It's like super silent in the background. There's really not too much depth. But then you listen to the re-recording, and again, they've added so much depth to the instruments and the background and the imaging around the songs that it's not just, here's a band with some instruments and, in this case, a DJ, and they're performing. There's layers on layers here, and it really comes off as something different, in my opinion.
And to me,
On both the recordings.
and to me, anything I hear that like is maybe like elevated or slightly different, to me, anything that it's nothing that could have been done with just a little bit of remastering. Everything you kind of explained, like, oh, the record sound flat. They could have just remastered it. Like, I tried to enjoy it for what it was, because again, music, like it's actually pretty incredible that they really do sound as tight and as, from a technical standpoint, technical musicianship, that they're as good as they are 20 plus years later. And I tried to enjoy it for that, because I do love their musicianship. I actually think that Incubus is one of the most underrated bands when it comes to musicianship and for their technical approach to their instruments. All of them, including Brandon's voice. He's still got one of the most unique sounding voices out there. But I just am like, I couldn't help but kept thinking, like, if you're not going to do anything different, why are you bothering with this? Why? Just why? And the pessimist in me couldn't help but go, well, because they wanted that money. They wanted to get the creativity back. And it's not like they were confident that new material is going to sell anyway. It just, to me, it just feels like a cop out.
Once again, if you're going to the Taylor Swift route and you're doing the re-recording for something like that, great. You know what? If this is Incubus's vision and this is what they're calling Incubus's version, you know, it's fine. It's great. You don't want to mess too much with what made you famous. I understand that you're looking for something different, but if you changed it around too much, would you have a Roger Waters Dark Side of the Moon Redux type thing here? Like, you changed it so much that it doesn't resemble what it used to be.
In that instance, though, the problem was that re-recording that Roger Waters did was just a piece of crap. Forget whether or not he should have even touched Dark Side of the Moon. Forget that. It was just a piece of crap.
But this could have been a pretentious piece of crap too if they changed it too much.
It could have been, but to me, it's just like, why? Why bother? The original album actually did sound pretty damn good still. It's still, and maybe it would have been better, maybe I would have been more into it if it was just a live recording, as I think they were kind of tempted to do. I will, to the band's credit, and even more so to Brandon's credit, there are definitely some moments where I do hear a little bit more stronger vocal performances sprinkled here and there, which is why I mentioned in my review, like, there's definitely like some sprinkles of like intricacies that are like, you can differentiate it from the original. And there's definitely moments where Brandon shines a little bit more than on the original recordings. And I actually found this fascinating in that Rolling Stone interview. He revealed that he had broken his nose or spectrum pretty much like during the early days of the band. I think they were playing at the Whiskey even, and their bassist at the time accidentally hit him in the face as they were performing energetically. So his face had been like, he just let it heal naturally, and for many years his face was basically messed up. And it got to the point where he's like, you know, I'm really not feeling well. Let me go see an ear, nose, throat doctor. And the doctor's like, dude, your face is so messed up. Please let me fix it. And sure enough, once it healed after the surgery, it was almost, and the way he even says is like, I felt like I started singing like I was 20 years ago. It is kind of fascinating.
His vocals do sound different.
Like, a little different.
There's definitely a tonal difference in his voice.
I will say this. He sounds weirdly younger.
Yes, he does.
On this re-recording than he does on the first album. I will give you that. But still not different enough to make me go, oh, I'm so glad they did this.
You know, I wish more bands would do something like this, because it shows you growing as a musician. Like,
but not every band is capable of sounding as good, if not better, than they did 20 years ago.
Right.
As Incubus.
Right. I'm not saying that, you know, every band should do this. I'm saying I wish more bands who could do this would do this, because it shows you growing as a musician, and it shows that you can maybe this will help somebody not resent their old music, right? Like they could have easily resented, playing like Nice to Know You or Wish You Were Here because they've been playing it for the last 23 years. And there's bands that are like that out there that they can't stand what they wrote. Like Metallica never plays Escape because they hate it, absolutely hate it. They played it live, I think, once. And they were forced to do it. And maybe if they could go back in time or they could do something with Ride the Lightning, maybe they would do something that would make them enjoy the song again and make it something they'd want to play live. And this, I think, really helps reinvigorate the music. And I hear it. I hear that this is a band that enjoys playing these songs and lovingly has put a ton of effort into this re-recording.
To me, to me, a sign of a band evolving musically is with the music that they create, not that they revisit and play. If I want to hear, to me, it's no, but I'm just saying, like, to me, yes, I love to see bands play songs energetically and as if they still love it live. I don't need to hear them do it in the studio. But with that said, Matt, you said that you wish that more artists who quote unquote could do a similar re-recording like this. You wish they would do more, like they would actually do it. If you could beg a band or artist to re-record a specific album, which band and which album?
If you want to go just pick anybody and any album, I would absolutely, like I said, I would love to hear Metallica maybe reimagine a little bit of the Ride the Lightning era, or possibly even do Kill 'Em All again and see what it's like now.
I would be interested to hear them do Kill 'Em All again. But you also know how much I love that album. And also,
and here,
and you know what?
And here, I'm coming from the complete opposite.
I know you hate that album. We've had many episodes where we talk about.
No. I don't hate it.
Despise it.
It's not Metallica sounding like Metallica. It's a young Metallica who is trying to find their way in the music industry. So, now that they're the biggest band on the planet, what do they do with their original recordings?
I think that could be interesting. I am still less inclined to hear bands do that and for this to be a trend. I would actually prefer to hear, and granted, I don't think this would ever happen just because of copyright issues, but to hear actual, like a single band actually pay tribute to a classic album of another artist and re-record that, to hear what a artist can do on another artist's piece of work and whether they can elevate or and combine into their sounds. I'm not going to, like, would have to come up with my own, I have to spend time to actually create a list of that. But to me, that would be more interesting to see, like, all right, what could an artist actually do with an album that inspired them and make it their own, or pay tribute to this? Like, would they just be trying to do a note for that too? Or would they try to add their own flavor to that album? I would actually prefer to see that, because I feel like that's a little bit more of creativity and a little bit more fun. And also, like, that's kind of also why I always liked cover albums. Like when a band does I'm talking, my example would be seeing a band dedicate to a single album, but I would actually, that's why I always loved cover songs though, and that I always enjoyed seeing, like, what can an artist do to elevate a certain piece of music that maybe some thought was untouchable. So I would prefer to see that trend personally.
I mean, we did get a lot of cover songs in the past. I feel like that's kind of dropped off a little bit.
I meant more so
in the rock world.
I mean more so the trend of seeing a band do a whole album by a single, like, okay, example here. Not saying I want to hear this, but Green Day doing Tommy, or even like, I'm trying
Limp Bizkit doing Appetite for Destruction.
I don't know if I want to hear that specifically, but yes, in theory, that. I mean, you and I talk a lot about how much we love Trivium, and granted, I don't think they'd ever do this because they ended up getting into a rut by getting compared to Metallica too much, or by trying to be Metallica too much. But what if Trivium redid And Justice for All, an album that is notorious for production flaws and for not having any bass on it? Like, that could be kind of fun and interesting too. You know, if I had to choose, Trivium doing And Justice for All from start to finish, that would be really cool. So that's the kind of trends I would almost love to see a little bit more. Not when I say see a little bit more, I'd love to see, period, because I don't really think there's any examples of that nowadays. So Just throwing that idea out there.
I mean, Dream Theater used to do that. They used to take a.
They used to do that for shows.
But there was recordings of it, though.
Yeah, because they try to be the Grateful Dead of prog metal and record all their bootleg shit shows. So, yeah, kind of similar. But none of that matters, Matt.
As you like to say, none of this matters.
I just did say that, ironically. Let's find out who gave the longest review in under 2 minutes. And Matt, I got some unfortunate news for you. You came in at 2 minutes and 7 seconds.
That's okay. It had to be said.
7 seconds north. It had to be said, I'm sure. What was my score, bud?
You came in at a balmy 1 minute and 47 seconds.
A balmy?
Yeah. Kind of humid outside.
Oh, I thought you said balmy. Like
I did.
B-O-M-B.
No, balmy. B-A-L-M-Y.
Oh, I thought you meant like I bombed it, when really I didn't, because I won, since you disqualified yourself with the over 2 minute review.
Okay.
Ha 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 ha. We are the champions, my friends. But what say you? I know, who gives a shit? You know what I do give a shit about? Your thoughts, listener. What do you think? Are you in agreement with Matt that this was actually an amazing recording experience to hear an incredible band revisit Morning View and give it new life? Or are you like me and you're like, oh, this is like, what's the point? Let us know on Facebook, Instagram, X/Twitter, or does anyone actually remember calling it Twitter? I feel like more people are accepting it as X now, which is surprising. Threads, if you're still on it, God bless you. TikTok, at Epic Footnote. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more episodes like this, including a very, very early 2 minutes review episode where we revisit A Crow Left the Murder. And as always, thank you to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Log on to Lucky13, the number beardco.com if you've ever wanted to try a beard balm or oil. These are the guys you're going to want to go to because they've got some of the finest smelling and feeling beard balms and oils on the market. We've got our own with them. Unfortunately, it's not inspired by Incubus in any way, shape, or form, but we do have...
That would probably smell like mushrooms. I don't know why. I just feel like it would have like a funky smell to it.
We can call it Hazy Days.
Ooh. Ed, get on it.
But we have our own that's inspired by Lemmy from Motorhead. Bourbon, tobacco, cola, leather. It smells incredible. It's going to leave you feeling fantastic. Like I said, some of the finest beard balms and oils on the market. And for you to try it and get in on the ground level with these guys, we're giving you 10% off. Use the code EFP10 at checkout. Anything in your cart is 10% off. Lucky 13, the number beardco.com.
And if you want to support us even further, go to our Linktree page, where the link that you can find on any of our bios on any social media platform, where you'll find more info about our merch. I'm talking about hats, t-shirts, coffee mugs, hoodies, stickers with our cool little skull logo on it. It's a great way to let your friends know. I heard Matt and Zach talk about Incubus for over 2 minutes. Yeah, we know the show's called 2 Minutes to Review, but it was longer than 2 minutes. Get over it. I'll just, throw a few extra bucks so we can keep making episodes like this and keep reviewing really awesome new music and re-recordings of music as well. Thank you all so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
Goodbye. Nice to know you.